The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all joining us here today on this Wednesday evening, or if you're checking us out later on one of your favorite podcast networks as well, too. Always a pleasure to hang out with you guys, talk a little sports, talk a little ball, and a little bit of everything in between. And for you to enjoy some of our random tangents and rants and everything in between. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelsey. And Kelsey, we've had ourselves a very busy weekend, a wild one, for lack of a better term, or as they like to say on the announcement team, a super wild one, nonstop. And you know what? We're gonna have a little bit of fun today with it as well, too. We're still kind of in that New Year's resolution thing, like how people pack the gym for that first month and they disappear for the rest of the year. We're still kind of in that phase with the sports world as well, too. And we're gonna have a little bit of fun today. Maybe have some awards and some other things going on this show.
Hey, it'll be fun. I can't wait. I know it's the super wild card idea is just at this point in time, it's just advertising, right? Like, just let's throw super in front of everything. Let's make it better. It's the same weekend it was before, except for there's only one team that gets a bye week, and we still get 6 games. I mean, it doesn't really change a whole lot. It is fun, but at this point in time, we've yet to see a 7 seed really advance yet. So, well, until a 7 seed advances, I'm going to hold off on calling it super for now. But it's going to be it was a fun wild. I mean, I can't say it wasn't a fun wild card weekend. It was just a wild card weekend. I'm not going to call it super yet until there's actually super excitement around a 2-7 matchup, if you will.
If you're going to call it super wild card weekend, I'd like to have just a regular wild card weekend as well, too. So why can't it be super divisional round? That's usually where the best games take place. Like I feel a little bit lied to. So we're just going to call it wild card weekend here for now as well, too. But you know, it's going to be a super show, so we appreciate you all joining us for that one as well, too. And you know, we're going to use that to not so subtly transition right into our first segment. Our first segment, of course, is the tip-off. And the tip-off, if you didn't check it out last week, brought to you by our new friends over at SeatGeek as well, too. Use code BellyUpSports. Get yourself 20% off your first time order there as well, too. And you know what? We like to go to a lot of sporting events. You don't want to overspend. You want to get a decent seat. Well, we don't expect to sit courtside now. We don't have that LeBron James money on the side, but you want to get a good seat for a fair price. Definitely SeatGeek is one of the places to go if that venue does use SeatGeek as well, too. So definitely use code BellyUpSports there. Go check them out. And we alluded to it. We're gonna break out some awards to start this one as well, too, but not regular season awards, not anything like that, not midseason awards. We're going to go to the ones that possibly won you a little bit of money this year. We're going to go with fantasy football awards as well, too. So everybody and their mom is in a fantasy football league, it feels like, whether they like it or they love it. At some point, they end up in a fantasy football league, sometimes multiple, sometimes more than they can count. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over some different awards that we had for players throughout the year. We got MVP. We got ourselves a sleeper or a darling pick. Everyone's favorite, the disappointment. And one, if you're in a dynasty league, a lock that you want to keep on lockdown for a while. So Kelsey, I'll go and open it up to you. Where do you want to start, and what do you feel? Do you want to start from the bottom up, or do you want to rip the Band-Aid off and go top to bottom?
You know what? Let's go bottom up. Bottom up always seems to be the best way to go. I mean, nobody wants to be left on the bad news, right? So let's start with the bad news very first. Let's go fantasy football disappointments. And DJ, I'm gonna let you go first on this one because I picked the topic. You get to go first.
You know what? There's a lot, and I mean a lot of different ways you could go with this as well, too. Because honestly, it feels like my fantasy team every year is a disappointment in some way, shape, or form. So I could just put my team, but I think we're going to narrow it in a little bit, and I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit for this one. I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts. He was arguably tight end number 2 in every single league, and he finished with, 2 touchdowns on the year. For how long did it take for the Falcons to even throw the ball, let alone throw it to Kyle Pitts? Nonetheless, they were down 28-0 against the Bengals and running halfback dive. They did not utilize an absolutely versatile weapon, one of the most freakish athletes in the game. They just refused to utilize him. They didn't throw him the ball in the red zone. I saw one fade route thrown to him, if I can even remember that. Like, it was a complete misuse of talent as well. So I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit and go Kyle Pitts just because you look at his average draft position. You look at tight end, where that's where you're trying to steal something, because the group of tight ends to pick from is one guy at the top. You're trying to score that number 2 guy that can give you like 85% of that. That was supposed to be Kyle Pitts, and he gave you 85% of nothing, really. Not his fault by any means. I blame Arthur Smith and the team for that, and Marcus Mariota and everything in between. But unfortunately, that your fantasy team doesn't care. So give me Kyle Pitts for the low-hanging fantasy low hanging fruit for fantasy football disappointment.
Okay, you know what? I like that. Yeah, it's a good pick as always. Honestly, you're right. There's a lot of ways you can go this. I'm gonna go with the number one position though, that everybody needs a consistent starter, somebody to get you consistent points. I'm gonna go quarterback, and I'm gonna go in everybody's preseason fantasy darling as he got traded, if you will. That's Russell Wilson, the ultimate disappointment that I called from day one. I'm going to keep standing by this. That this guy was not made out to go to Denver and succeed. And I'm just going to keep talking about it. Every chance I get now, I'm going to keep talking about it and keep talking about how I was right and everybody else was wrong. And your biggest disappointment this season had to have been Russell Wilson, because I don't think there's another quarterback that was projected to be a top 10 guy in a lot of people's books. And I say a lot of people as in the guys that most fantasy football people will follow, your Matthew Berrys and such. And they all projected him to be a top 10 guy, if not a top 5 guy in a lot of cases, because you look at those weapons and you should be a top 5 receiver in that offense, top 5 quarterback in that offense, but you weren't. So for me, Russell Wilson is an obvious, very, very big winner of the biggest disappointment. And I won't be surprised next year we'll see a turnaround in Russell. But this year, I will say that he was the god-awfulest prediction for a guy that got drafted in the first round if you pick a quarterback in the first round.
What's funny, too, is there's a lot of leagues I actually saw. There's a 20-person league I heard of this year as well, too. So you really only get a chance at one starting quarterback, and then after that, you're pulling waiver wires. If you took Russell Wilson as your one quarterback in that league, I'm sorry. Unless you had a whole lot of other MVP caliber players, that was a very rough season for you as well. So you definitely can't go wrong with the Russell Wilson one being honestly not just a fancy disappointment, but kind of a disappointment overall for everyone else. But like you mentioned, we expect maybe not a mile-high turnaround next year, but maybe a quarter-mile turnaround as well, too. Just maybe more touchdowns and bathrooms by the midway season point as well. So that'll do it for a disappointment of the year. But now we're going to move on. We're going to look to the future with this one. We're going to take a look at the dynasty lock of looking forward based off of this year as well, too. And when it comes to dynasty, for those of you who don't know, that's basically where you keep your team year in and year out, and you get draft picks to bring in the rookies, and you kind of go through that way as well, too. So think of it like you actually own the team, for lack of a better words, as well. You don't have to redraft. So dynasty lock, the easy pick. I'm gonna skip the easy picks. We both know what the easy pick is here. I'm gonna go and have a little fun with this one. I'm gonna go with Garrett Wilson. What he did for the Jets this year, leading all rookie receivers with Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, Mike White. There might have been another guy in there playing quarterback. I just can't quite remember. In a very putrid passing offense where Elijah Moore was asking to be traded and Corey Davis was in and out of the lineup, Garrett Wilson showed up and showed out. Weirdly enough, none of the rookie receivers this year had quarterbacks. A weird change from the last couple of years when we saw Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle, guys like that, actually have a quarterback to produce with. This year, not so much. All the rookie receivers went to teams without a quarterback or teams that refuse to play a quarterback. So give me Garrett Wilson as a dynasty lock, ignoring the blatantly obvious one right at the top. But I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson for my fantasy lock rookie this year.
Okay. All right. I respect that. Yeah, for me, I'm not going to, your dynasty lock of the week. I'm kind of saving this guy for the surprises of the year for our sleeper, our darling pick for the year, just because he was unexpected in a lot of ways. Maybe unexpected. But I think I'm going to go the same trend as you. Go with a young rookie receiver that's kind of proven he is a lot going forward with no quarterback, if you will. And that's Chris Olave. I'm going to go Chris Olave. Obviously, the injury at the end of the season didn't really help matters. But the rest of the performance through, let's say, week 3 through the end of the season when he finally got injured, I think there wasn't a better receiver, young receiver at that point in time than what you saw with Chris Olave. I think obviously he's one of those guys that unfortunately you do need a quarterback for him, but at the same time he was out here making plays with Jameis Winston's broken back, with Taysom Hill, with Andy Dalton and Red Noodle Arm Rocket. Like I don't know what else you need to do to perform for me. And obviously you're right. There are probably there's some more obvious picks out there right now. But I wanted to go something a little bit different. Something that, like, if you're looking at your team, you need to solidify a couple positions. And wide receiver 1B is kind of what I'm going to classify him as right now, Chris Olave, because he's not really as good. He's not going to be a CD Lamb right now or anybody like that. But he is a guy that give you consistent production, give you that 10 plus points a week as long as he's on the field. And that's what you really need. I mean, you saw him snag some of these balls that are just like, that doesn't make any sense. And then still end up with, 80 yards, sniffing a touchdown, at least 7 to 8 targets a game. And then it's like, all right, well, I can't ask for more. Like it really, you can't ask for more for a guy that projected. Obviously, we had him a little higher ranked as far as just actual performance on the field goes, but fantasy wise, you can't really predict a fantasy receiver who's a rookie with no quarterback like they had in New Orleans. And now you go fast forward to next year and you look at, they're obviously going to be trying to solidify that quarterback position. And ideally, he's going to finally get himself a solid quarterback. I don't see any reason why you can't see Chris Olave here as a potential guy for your dynasty going forward. And for me, he would be my dynasty lock of the year.
Absolutely as well too. And not to mention, he was supposed to be the number 2 receiver with Mike Thomas on the other side, helping take some of the heat off him, let him acclimate. You got that for 4 quarters, if even that. And then it was Chris Olave, receiver 1 on the team, really. So a couple of Ohio State Buckeye rookies leading the way for our fantasy dynasty locks as well too. Maybe CJ Stroud's on this list next year. We'll wait and see for that one as well too. That's a long ways away before we look forward to that. But next up, we're going to look at the sleeper, the darling, the Cinderella, the guy who might have maybe gave you a little late season jolt as well too to help you win your fantasy league, and maybe even like a waiver wire pickup. We're going to put all of that into one. Basically, the guy you did not expect, you just kind of have on your team for. In some cases, you name your team after him just for fun. Looking at you, DJ Shark. But so for this one, I'm going to go with Jerick McKinnon, the running back that the Chiefs brought in late. I don't think he started a game this year. If he did, it was a couple late, and he had 9 receiving touchdowns, which is absolutely crazy from the running back position. He was a weird touchdown/reception machine. It doesn't make sense because you look at his stat line at the end of the game, you're like, meh. But then you see the fantasy points thing ticker go at the bottom, he's 26 points. It's like, how did this happen? Where did you come from? If you got him late in the season, maybe pick him up early off a waiver wire, toss him in your flex for a little bit, there's a good chance you went on a nice run to end your season. So give me Chiefs surprise running back, Jerick McKinnon, right? We're picking a Chiefs running back in this. Who would have thought? But I'm gonna take Jerick McKinnon as my sleeper, darling, waiver wire, whatever you want to call a surprise pick that might have helped you sneak into the playoffs at the back end of the year.
You know what? I really do like that. Okay, I'm changing. I think I'm changing my mind here. I was gonna go with Dameon Pierce here, but I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I keep thinking about before the season how much people were just touting Dameon Pierce. So I don't know if I can really call him a surprise at that point in time, because we all knew whoever the number 1 running back is going to be there is going to be getting all of the carries and all of the offense, if you will. So in that surprise case, I'm gonna I guess slide away from that, and I'm gonna go with the more mainstream surprise here. It wasn't a surprise to us. We've talked about him constantly, but that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown to a lot of people it was a fantasy sleeper. And I'm going to go ahead and double up and say Jared Goff as well. I'm just going to take those two as a tag team here because you can't have one without the other. If you look at a lot of Jared Goff's performances, 60% of his performance his talent or point went to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you take away Amon-Ra St. Brown, you lose 60% of Jared Goff's production this season, which was absolutely insane for what you expected to get from Jared Goff. Most people snag Jared Goff as a second pick as their quarterback, unless they're in that 20-team league. And then maybe he made a team, at that point in time. So, yeah, no, I'm going to go with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I'm going to throw an honorable mention in there to Jared Goff. But again, that one's not so much of a sleeper for me, but it is for the general public and as far as fantasy football, quote-unquote gurus who don't really pay attention to who actually is talented in the league, and they just look at the numbers on the board. So don't let the numbers on the board fool you before another season, guys. That's all I got to say going into next season is look at the actual guys who have performed on the teams that are looking to turn around. That's who is going to be your next year's sleeper as well.
You never know. The Lions might roar into the playoffs next year like they did this year as well, too. And it will be on the backs of Amon-Ra St. Brown and underrated fantasy quarterback Jared Goff, who especially, once again, down the back half of that season, as good as any quarterback in the league, too. When you look at his final numbers, well, it makes sense why Ben Johnson was a hot commodity before he decided to stay put, which, by the way, he's staying put. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff coming back, Jameson Williams, another coming in healthy for a change. Look out for anybody on that team as well, too. You might be able to just pick your shoes and be one of those guys. No matter who you grab, you get 10+ points a week. So I do like dipping into the Lions as well, too. Hard Knocks finally didn't curse somebody. So next we're gonna go to the MVPs. These, of course, it speaks for themselves. They're your main guys. They're the ones who won your league, got you a nice little fantasy champion ring as well too that you can rub over everybody's face, a trophy, or if you're, or in some everyone's favorite case, a nice stack of cash as well too. So fantasy football MVP, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give us two because frankly, there's one really obvious answer, and I'm going to go with the second backup one. So the obvious answer for me is Austin Eckler. He's the leading touchdown scorer for the second year in a row, 90 plus receptions at running back, almost 1,000 yards rushing, 13 rushing touchdowns, north of 20 total touchdowns. Austin Eckler speaks for itself. Second year in a row, he's been top 2 scoring. I think and he was the leading touchdown scorer last year. He's tied with Jonathan Taylor. Just doubled up on it this year and added the receptions. I'm going to also shove in Jalen Hurts on the back end of that too, because what he did for those first 14 or so games before he got hurt was absolutely electric. Very reminiscent of prime Cam Newton with his dual threat ability. Had north of 30 touchdowns, very few turnovers, which is a big thing too, because that means you're not losing points. He's only threw a handful of picks, a couple of fumbles. I don't remember the exact number. It might have been 5, but you're not losing points on him in front compared to like a Josh Allen, where you'll get 3 touchdowns from him, but he'll give you 2 picks and you'll lose a few of those points, and you're just smacking yourself upside the head when you lose by 2 points. So I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts as my back end sleeper pick, with Austin Eckler's obviously the main one as well too. So Kelsey MVP, I'm curious, do we have a similar train of thought here, or are you going to pull one out of the well?
I might be pulling one out of the well, but I don't know. Again, this shouldn't surprise anybody where I'm going with this, really. I look at one of the toughest positions to get constant production out of, and that's going to be running back. And you look at that number 1 running back. This could have doubled as a sleeper for a lot of people, or a surprise for a lot of people. But I'm looking at that number 1 running back, and I'm looking at Las Vegas. You struggle with your quarterback, you struggle with your offense, you struggle with everything. But the one person that didn't struggle? Josh Jacobs.
And Devontae Adams.
2,000 rushing, or 2,000 total yards this season, 1,653 rushing yards, 12 total touchdowns. Broke off 2 long touchdowns, 2 40-plus yard touchdowns this season, including an 86-yarder. You know what? I don't need to say much more. The Josh Jacobs train was rolling on a year where he needs to go into the offseason at performing if he's going to get a contract. So I looked at Josh Jacobs and what he did from top to bottom as that dude. Obviously, you had your Derrick Henry, you had your Nick Chubbs, you had your Jonathan Taylors in the world. Those were the big 3. Those were the expected big 3. You had Najee Harris, who was supposed to perform, didn't really perform up to snuff. Josh Jacobs was kind of that 5th, 6th, 7th ranked guy in a lot of books. Some had him as high as 3, some had him as low as 10. And here he is, number 1 all around in the category. Should not be questioned whether he's talented or not. And in his career, you look at it across the board, in his career, has stayed a top 10 fantasy football running back the entire time. So look for him going into next season. I don't know where he's going to land. I don't know if he stays in Las Vegas or what. But look for him next year as a fantasy football player to continue to watch out for. But this year, he's my MVP because for such a terrible team, he is the guy that was giving you the absolute production you needed. And yeah, there were some games that were super disappointing because he ended like with 2 yards per carry, and it was like 80 yards on 20 touches. You're like, oh, this sucks. But then he had 40-yard week the next week, so it's like, all right, well, I can live with this, so it's not too bad. But yeah, give me Josh Jacobs here, and honorable mention out to Justin Jefferson. Jay Jettas, probably your offensive player of the year in the NFL. So got to shout. I'd feel stupid if I don't shout out the offensive player of the year for fantasy football award.
Absolutely as well too. I do want to point out Josh Jacobs. The best part about it was he got hot late. Like you mentioned, he had a few iffy games, but he also had some 50-point outbursts when you need him going down the stretch to maybe get that top seed going into the playoffs, or to get you into the playoffs nonetheless as well too. So he did the opposite of Cam Akers, who waited till you're basically your fantasy championship to finally produce. He got you into the playoffs with his down the stretch performance, and the volume he got to. Oh my goodness! At the point that Josh McDaniels said we're done with Derek Carr, we're going to feature Josh Jacobs 30 times a game. We saw him really take off there. So definitely somebody to keep an eye out moving forward as well too. And the one last one I'm going to throw in here before we go ahead and recap everything. You could make a very, very, very outlandish case for Travis Kelce as the fantasy MVP too, just because at tight end, basically you're just trying to scrape by, because tight ends you have Travis Kelce. Then there's a Grand Canyon. Then you got the Mark Andrews of the world as well. So you can't, and kind of George Kittle. Then there's a gap. Then you got Darren Waller, but he was so injured this year. Then you got everybody else. You're just trying to fill the gaps in, with Dallas Goedert in there as well too. What he was able to provide you as a top
TJ Hawkinson this season.
Exactly. And even just the gap between Travis Kelce, Number 2s through 5 and everybody else, he was a top 3 receiver as a tight end. He scored double-digit touchdowns, north of 100 catches, top 10 in yards. If you got him along with a couple of other relatively productive receivers, you had an automatic advantage every week. Even if you had a rough game, you went into that week projected to win, it felt like. So that's an outlandish one by position value, not so much just what they did as well, too. So, Kelsey, I'll let you go and recap first. Go and give me who you had from your awards. We'll go ahead and start from the bottom up.
All right. So for my disappointment, I went ahead and oh god, hang on. I gotta pull them back up. My disappointment of the year. Fuck, I don't even remember, dude. At this point in time, I didn't write them down. Yeah, Russell Wilson, my disappointment of the year. My lock of the year, I gave you. Oh god, yeah, Chris Olave, sleeper. You know what? Go ahead and recap my list for me because you have this memorized. I don't.
All right, so I'll go from mine and we'll go with yours and then go to mine. So for disappointment, we had Russell Wilson. For dynasty lock, we do have Chris Olave. For the sleeper, underrated pick, kind of to, for lack of better terms, surprise people a little bit as well too. See if you can make a surprise. That one I'm having trouble remembering too. But for MVP, we of course had Justin Jefferson as well as Josh Jacobs as well too. For mine, disappointment, we had for disappointment, we had Kyle Pitts. For dynasty lock, Garrett Wilson. Sleeper surprise pick, Jerick McKinnon. And MVP, Austin Eckler as well too. So that's what we had for our fantasy football awards this year as well too. And honestly, I wish I had a few of these players we named as well too, because I think I'd want a few more games if I'd have got a few more of them as well too. So that'll do it for our fantasy football awards show here as well too. No trophies to hand out, no special bow ties, nothing, no Emmys, nothing like that as well too. But it's definitely fun to look back at the fantasy football season and kind of look forward to what we have next year. And we'll see which one of these guys maybe make a return to the list next year as well too. Does Austin Eckler pull a hat trick and lead the NFL in touchdowns for the 3rd consecutive season? Time we'll wait and find out, but that'll do. Probably unlikely. I'm not betting on that as well too. But
you know what? That's a long shot bet, and that's the one I'd place a bet on potentially, but I'm not about to live and die off of that one.
Yeah, the last person to do that was like Todd Gurley, I think, that did it in back-to-back years, and by that 3rd year, his knee was useless. So I'm not gonna bet on that one either. But that's gonna do it for our tip-off segment as well too. So that's gonna take us now into Kelsey's second favorite part of every show, and that is the main event. The main event, of course, brought to you by our good friends over at Manscaped. Use code HILOSports, get yourself 20% off at checkout. And they just released a nice new tool as well too, the Beard Hedger, an electric beard trimmer. One attachment, 20 different lengths as well too. So whether you want to be Grizzly Adams, whether you want to have a nice 5 o'clock shadow, and literally everything in between, they got something for you as well too to keep your facial hair nice and tight to match the rest of the men's grooming products that they have as well too. Get yourself free shipping. Code HILOSports at checkout as well too. Get yourself 20% off, and you know what? Make yourself look and feel a little. Make yourself look and feel a little special as well too. As we start off the new year, new year, new you, new year, better you, however you want to word it as well too. But go ahead and make yourself feel and look the best that you can as well too. So definitely check that out. Code HILOSports once again at checkout, 20% off manscaped.com. And you know what? We're kind of in a giving mood today. We did some awards for the tip off. Well, we just had the not so super wild card weekend, and we're going to break out pretend this is a red pen instead of a black Sharpie. We're going to go and give some report card grades for some of the teams that we looked at this week as well too. And you know what? There's a lot of really fun matchups, a lot of and a lot of pain as well. So we'll go through each team and do a quick recap as well as a letter score grade. And we might as well start with the very first one that we had. The Seahawks taking on the 49ers, what was a very, very competitive half. And then the wheels, unfortunately, came flying off in the second half as well, too. Geno Smith didn't write back in the first half, and in the second half, he had to break out the pen and he had to break out the quill and the parchment paper a little bit. Christian McCaffrey continued to be CMC, and Brock Purdy kind of announced himself to the world at the same time. Kind of was just like, well, you just put the ball in Deebo Samuel's hands in open space, and look what happens. Or hey, let's give the ball to CMC and look what happens, and watch Nick Bosa and Havoc Reed company. So I'll start with the Seahawks for me as well too. My grade for them, I'm giving them a C-. The reason it's only a C- because they played so well in that first half. DK Metcalf was electric for the most part. Geno Smith was very, very accurate, but you can't get any higher than a C-, and even that's kind of generous going before you go after what happened in the second half where it was like, 28-3 or something like that as well too. And it was you can't lose 40-17 and get anything higher than a C-. So I'll give him a very, very generous C- for that game. So Kelsey, Seahawks, if you have to give them a letter grade, What's Mr. Professor Kelsey Coin going to give the Seahawks, especially after they let you down in the pick'ems?
Yeah, I mean, if I could give him an effort just to let me down, I would. And actually, I don't spare me from this one. I might actually go there. Look, I can't even call it a competitive half. I'm going to call it a competitive second quarter, where the Seahawks rattled off 17 straight points. But you look at the rest of this game, and the Seahawks were not good, giving up double-digit points every other quarter, except for the third where they only gave up a touchdown. It still wasn't pretty. Like the Seahawks were bad all around. In my report card, I'm going to say that a D is a failing grade. It's the you have to score a 70 or higher. So this is getting a D minus for me for the Seahawks. It was ugly all around. I don't think I need to say a whole lot on this one. They weren't ready. You mentioned Gino didn't write back. Well, that dude was writing just like Bart Simpson does in every intro for the Simpsons at the end of that. So, not pretty by any means for me for the Seahawks. So I'm gonna give him a D. D minus for him. So, yeah, we're going tough to start this one out.
They're grounded by the Bay, and unfortunately, the nice weather worked against them as they're hoping to play in a monsoon, it seems like, as well. But that's going to take us to the other side of the equation. We got the 49ers who, as we mentioned, won by north of 25, 30 points. So, honestly, you win by that much, give them an A. I'm just going to give them an A minus. They really didn't miss a beat. They didn't have too much to worry about. Everybody seemed to get loose. Everyone had a great game. The only reason it's not an A++ is because they had some shaky coverage a little bit early, but you can't win. When you win by that much, it's pretty straightforward. So I'll give them an A- for just because they had the most dominant win of the first week of the playoffs so far.
That's fair. Okay, I'll give you that. They gave their most dominant win. You still gave up 17 points to Geno and squad, who I just gave a D- in this grading. So I'm going to dock you some points for this one, San Francisco. I don't like the whole taking a break for one quarter. Maybe overall, probably the best performance. But if I'm gonna pick this apart, I'm gonna pick this apart. Like I have to pick this apart. I can't just give you an A across the board. So I'm gonna give them a B+. They have that 89.4, not enough to get you an A, but close enough that you could think about what you did wrong and what you could have done better. So give me the 49ers here as a B+. Very close though.
I had a few professors in college that were very similar to you. That'd be an 89.8, and they'd leave it at that B+ while everyone else would get rounded up to an A-.
I had hundreds of teachers that did that to me. So I totally. This is why I have experience with this one. I'm going where I have experience.
Some people do sympathy. You do revenge. Either way as well too. So that's going to move us now on to our second game, and we'll call it the most dramatic game of the playoffs so far as well too. And we got the Chargers taking on the Jaguars, a 27-point lead for the Chargers, resulting in a 2-point loss to the Jaguars by the end of it as well, to a 1-point loss, 31-30. And the Jaguars lost the turnover differential 5-0. So the Chargers did not turn the ball over once, still gave up a 27-point lead. We're going to take the fun part of this. We're going to go with the Chargers grade. And they get an F+ because you had a 27-point lead. But the reason that you're not any higher is because you choked a 27-point lead and you couldn't even get a first down. Herbert was kind of awful in the second half, missing touchdowns. You're 6'6" and you're throwing it down here. That made you were throwing it like Baker Mayfield's height at that point, maybe even Kyler Murray's. You couldn't get first downs. They didn't even try running the ball. I think Austin Eckler finished with 10 carries, it felt like, and 2 of them were touchdowns in the first half. Your defense, once you started losing a couple players, fell apart. Joey Bosa, my Lord, did he implode. And then they started picking on Asante Samuel. He was either catching picks or giving up touchdowns. He was Trayvon Diggs, basically. And unfortunately, kind of came off in the second half. So giving him an F+ because they had such a great first half, it's not going to be an F-. But with great first half, makes the second half even feel worse. So give me an F+ for the Chargers he can't choke a 27-point lead. It's like choking a 3-1 lead on steroids, it feels like. So give me F+.
All right. So an F+. Wow. All right. I didn't know you can do F+. I didn't know you could do pluses and minuses for Fs.
Neither did I.
Yeah. I'm look, if we're just going Chargers, I'm going F, just straight across the board. You can't give up a 27-point lead. And on top of that, you just continue this trend for the Chargers of just being awful and disappointing everybody every time you go into playoffs. Every time. This is awful. I'll say this. Austin Eckler, you get an A. Everybody else on the team, gets an F. Asante Samuel, your first quarter gets an A+. The rest of the game gets an F-. Like, this was awful. The Chargers as a whole, I don't know what it is. Talk about snake-bitten franchises, poverty franchise, however you want to word it. There's just something about the Chargers in the playoffs that is just awful. Just god awful. And I'll never understand it. I keep picking them thinking there's no way it can continue. There's no way they can keep being this bad. But they just keep disappointing everybody. So yeah, for that reason and the 27-point blown lead, I mean, come on, man. It's the freaking Jaguars. Like, you have all this on defense. I don't care if it's been always the Jaguars. You have all this on defense. You have a Hall of Fame rush end on defense. You have another one that's probably going in the Hall of Fame that just straight imploded. You have a young corner of a son who's the son of a potential Hall of Famer. And you have a potential Hall of Famer at safety. And you do that? Really? And I'm not even counting your Kenneth Murrays. I'm not even counting your Drew Tranquils in there. I'm not counting your Sebastian Days in there. You know, guys that are actually really quality players that are above average NFL players that you're sitting here just watching absolutely implode. There's so many ways you can say this, but it's just I don't get it. I'll never understand how. Maybe Brent, maybe it's Staley. I don't know. Maybe it's the environment they have there. Maybe it's just too comfortable. You know, send them to St. Louis. This is your penalty for blowing a 27-point lead and continuing to just ruin every Chargers' dreams and hopes. You go to St. Louis and you become the new St. Louis Chargers. Your logo already matches the arch anyway, so just make it happen. Like this is my penalty to them. They're F, and I move them out. Like, get an F, and you're getting sent out of LA.
Wow, so they got evicted and flunked out. So you know what? They probably
honest, they weren't really living in SoFi anyways. They're just kind of biting.
So you keep out the squatters and flunked them as well too. So either this is what happens when you leave San Diego. You should have never left as well too. It wasn't great there, but it wasn't this bad at least. I mean, at least when you lost, it was Steve Young throwing 6 touchdowns again, the monkey off his back in the Super Bowl. It wasn't this embarrassing, but there are two sides to every coin. So we're gonna take a look at the Duval side of this with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I always when it comes to the playoffs as well too. Comebacks always like to hold a high esteem because it just shows such mental fortitude. It's often led by outstanding quarterback play. All those great things as well too. You look at like Frank Reich with the Bills, Luck with the Colts, Brady with the Patriots, all those major comebacks as well too. This one I hold a little bit lower than those ones, in part because it happened without turnovers and so it was like an implosion and just not running the clock by the Chargers. It was just weird. It was very unusual, if that makes sense. It wasn't necessarily stellar play by the Jaguars. It was just that questionable play by the Chargers. But the Jaguars still got it done, still made the plays. That 2-point conversion with sending Trevor Lawrence over the top, trying to do an MJ pose. The 4th down and 1, Travis Etienne around the edge from a full house type formation. Brilliant. Dougie P, get that wheelbarrow out for you. You earned it yet again. So I'm going to give him a B. I think it's a very generous B because you threw 4 picks in the first half and you're down 27-0. The same rules still apply, and you successfully completed the comeback. But it was a weird type of comeback compared to some of those other ones where in those cases the comebacking team actually kind of forced the comeback. Where this one is kind of served to the Jaguars and like, well, all right, I'll take this plate and I will walk right over here with it and I will have my cake and eat it too. So the Jaguars get a B for it, and it was a very good comeback. But you know what? I blame the Chargers more than I could kudos to Jaguars, even though they do get their flowers.
All right. Yeah. I mean, we're kind of thinking the same thing. It doesn't feel like a comeback, right? It feels like here's a gift because we only ran the ball 23 times as total while up 27 points. We ran the ball only 7 times while up 27 points. Let's also be very clear about that. You have a chance to run the clock out. You can do absolutely anything you want with it, and you don't run the ball. Say what you will about today's day and age. I don't understand it. The Jaguars, first quarterback in the history of the NFL to throw 4 picks and 4 touchdowns in a game for Trevor Lawrence. Great. Good on you. But why'd you throw 4 picks? Because they weren't good. Where were you throwing those 4 picks? Like, this is where I really kind of want to I penalize the Jaguars, because those picks for Trevor Lawrence weren't like tip picks. They weren't like situations where, oh no, like, yeah, he threw the ball at Asante Samuel Jr. multiple times. Like, where are you going, man? Like, do you not see the guy sitting in a zone in a flat that you're just gonna just sit there? He doesn't move. He's wearing white. He's wearing the Chargers logo. Like, don't throw him the ball. Throw Evan Ingram the ball. Your big, tall tight end that surprised your season. Yeah, throw him the ball, not Asante Samuel Jr. But no, he's threw Asante Samuel. I don't get it. He threw Drew Tranquil one. So I'm going to penalize the Jaguars on this one. I'm giving them B-. I could go lower, but they won the game at the end of the day. They did make a comeback. Congratulations for that. And the way they made their comeback, yes, it was impressive. Just using all your players, offensively. But again, no turnovers to help lead the charge. No really big, impactful defensive plays. A lot of just, the Chargers just suck offensively. So here you go. And yeah, to me, this is bigger on the Chargers than it is on the Jaguars. So I'm giving the Jaguars an average performance for an average comeback.
That seems pretty fair as well too. I'll give him credit for the first pick being tipped because it got tipped like 3 times. It felt like between Day and Joey Bosa, and then it bounced in Tranquil's hands. But the third to Asante Samuel, it's like, did you not see him? Like, he's sitting right there. Or wow, you forced it on 4th down. That happens, but like you kind of threw it to Zay Jones' outside shoulder, not his inside shoulder. But either way, they made the comeback. Kudos to them. They got a very tough task coming up again this weekend as well too. Quality season for a team that not many people expected to really make the playoffs, let alone win a playoff game at that as well too. So next we're going to go into the first of the triple headers on Saturday. Bills and Dolphins, a weirdly competitive game. Started as a Bills rout. Dolphins kept it close, very, very close, uncomfortably close to where they had a chance to come back and tie it up late. Bills hold on late. We're going to start with the Dolphins on this one, and I'm going to give them a C+ just because they did keep it close. But at the same time, we'll talk about the Bills side of this as well, too, once we get to that one. But I'm going to go with a C+ for the Dolphins. Very weirdly competitive game. So give me Dolphins C+. You did what you could with the third-string quarterback. Mike McDaniel, great game planning. Weird job getting the plays in late. Like the amount of times they had to waste a timeout for no reason. Defensively, you had your moments. Then you had your what are you doing? Gave up a touchdown to everyone besides Stephon Diggs, it felt like. So we'll go with a C+ for them for just what they did with what they were missing.
Yeah, kind of on the same page again. I think it was a heck of a performance for the Dolphins to make a comeback, but at the same time, not good enough to get you a B. And you actually lose a few points from your C+ for me for the way you manage that clock. You can't lose 2 timeouts to delay a game potentially, and then take 3 more delay of games in that same half. Like that's not, you can't do that. So for me, I'm going to go a flat C. It was good. A good comeback for the Dolphins. You still lost the game. You're still down big to start that game off. You thought you were going to get routed, but you did it with a third-string quarterback. Skylar Thompson looked good in that game and made a comeback. And it wasn't great by any means. And again, this kind of goes in the same vein as the Jaguars. You really did it without really any help. You didn't really help yourself. It was a lot of the Bills just kind of, what are you doing? Not running the ball with Devin Singletary, and that's the period, like explanation point. Not running the ball with Josh Allen. But you couldn't stop a wet sneeze from the receivers at this point in time. They just ran right through you. It really felt again like the Bills were just kind of the reason why the Dolphins were able to stay close, but at the same time, the Dolphins didn't make the mistakes at the end of the game to give themselves that opportunity. So I think outside of the clock issues with the Dolphins, it was a really good performance because I give them a lot more points because you're doing it with a third-string quarterback. That's already impressive enough for me. It's kind of why I look at the 49ers and obviously Brock Purdy giving you a little bit of benefit there back when I graded them as a B+. If it wasn't Brock Purdy, if that was Jimmy G, then you might have gotten a B if you're the 49ers. So for this situation for the Dolphins, I'm giving you a C. Probably could have been a C- just for your clock operations, clock management. I hate watching coaches and struggle with clock management. It's a giant blinking clock, literally straight in front of your face. And as a quarterback, you have all the information right in front of you. You literally know exactly where the clocks are. The ref tells you before every play when he starts the clock. And heck, half the time they don't even start the clock because you ask them not to. And so it's the whole thing. Give me a C for the Dolphins, and it was a good comeback, but not a great performance overall.
Absolutely, and you kind of started talking about it. Next, we're gonna look at the Bills for it as well too, and I'm gonna have fun with this one. I'm gonna give them a C+ as well too. They're gonna get correction. I'm gonna give them a B- because they won the game, so they get that 0.1 boost from a 79.9 to the 80 flat. So they'll get a B minus. They'll get a B minus somehow, or C plus, B minus. Either way, point is they were terrible. Honestly, they had electric moments. Josh Allen threw some ridiculous touchdowns. He made some ridiculous plays, but you turned it over 3 times. You gave the defense a touchdown by fumbling it right into Christian Wilkins' hands and let him score. Josh Allen during those middle quarters was terrible. And as much as we both like Josh Allen, he was kind of terrible. He kept the Dolphins in that game better than Skylar Thompson did. Defensively, they were really good for the most part, but they did not stop the bleed. There were some moments where they just kind of got lackadaisical, which we've seen them do a lot. So I'm going to give them the B minus, just basically just short of the C plus 2 because they won. And when they were clicking for those couple of drives, they were humming. That touchdown to Gabe Davis was beautiful. The deep shots to Stephon Diggs were wonderful. And then you followed up with a red zone pick. And then you would follow it up and you fumbled for a touchdown and then just forcing things that aren't there, not running the ball. Josh Allen trying to fight a defensive lineman, then walking away once it turns into a kerfuffle. It was Josh Allen's worst playoff performance, arguably ever, which is weird to say when he threw 3 touchdowns. But for the Bills, you get a B minus, and it's if they play like that against Cincinnati, well, we'll talk about Cincinnati later. It might be a rough divisional round.
Yeah, again, we're sticking the same thing here. Josh Allen, you throw three touchdowns, you throw 2 picks though. Let's not forget your fumble. That's just as well. So you look at this. Josh Allen did way more to keep them in this game. And again, I go to another team that you actually had a run game this season, and you ran the ball 26 times with a lead. And you only run the ball 26 times. Why? You're averaging 4.8 and 3.2 yards per carry from your main running backs and 5 yards a carry from your quarterback, and you're not running the ball more? Come on. Give me a break if you're an NFL coach, please. Stop thinking this is so hard. It doesn't need to be crazy. I don't need to see 50-yard bombs every play just because you have Josh Allen. Doesn't need to happen. If in the playoffs, you just need to win the game and make the performance to win the game. So for that, I'm giving a C plus because you barely won the game. You barely did it. And it was a struggle. If it's not for Tremaine Edmonds and that defense down the stretch, you don't get out of this game. That Dolphins team was going to come back, and they were going to score. And we would have saw Josh Sanders kicking the game winner had it not been for that defense making the stops necessary down the stretch. Because the offense sucked. The offense was just dismal. It looked like Josh Allen as a rookie for 2.5 quarters in this game. I felt like I was watching rookie Josh Allen all over again, where it was just what are you doing, dude? Why are you just throwing it up for no reason? Why are you throwing a 60-yard pick to a guy that's obviously not open, who has somebody still over the top of him, so far over the top of him, mind you, that he was able to basically fair catch the interception and then make a move on the receiver who you were intending to throw for? Why is that the situation you're going with, Josh? And not maybe, I don't know, throwing the 6-yard check down to Nyheim Hines in that situation, or to James Cook, or maybe hand the ball off for once to Devin Singletary on first down. Please, just one time. That's all I ask. The Bills, just disappointment in 2.5 quarters is there. It just shows, I don't know. To me, this shows an inexperience in a lot of ways. At least they didn't, deal with the delay of game issues as much. Still had some delay of game issues, but it just shows an inexperience of teams in these playoffs right now. And it wasn't great for the Bills, but at least they won, I guess. But yeah, this is a battle of a C and a C plus team in this game. It was an ugly game all around. Looked good on the scorecard, but that's about it.
That's just about it as well, too. And speaking of games that looked good on the scorecard as well, too, and we're actually surprisingly competitive, we had the Vikings taking on the Giants, the coming out party for Daniel Jones in the playoffs as well, too, having a fantastic playoff debut. Saquon doing Saquon things as well. Kirk Cousins doing Kirk Cousins things as well, too. The Giants getting away with that W in that game as well, too, and controlling a lot of the clock, putting up asinine offensive numbers. We'll go and start with the Vikings because I'm going to keep mine short, quick, and painless. They get an F. Just a straight F, because that was the worst defense I've seen since the TCU-Georgia game, basically, as well, too. And that's the comparison as far as what that defense was doing. It was wet tissue paper. They didn't get off the soft zone quarter high the entire game. The one time they maybe did, they tried to play blatant man with no safety help. That defense was terrible. And offensively, they were okay. Kirk Cousins wasn't bad. He just wasn't great. That throwing it 3 yards on 4th down and 8 is not going to do it. So they get an F. Just You should have won that game comfortably. You're the worst 13-win team arguably ever with the way you performed in that playoff game. So just an F for the Vikings. Not a fan of that defensive performance.
I gotta say I'm not as harsh on them. I'm still harsh on this one, but not as harsh this time. I'm gonna go with a D- for the Vikings, and a lot of that does come down to Kirk at the end of the day. 31 of 39, 2 touchdowns, 273. You got what you needed from Kirk. Dalvin Cook gave you 60 yards on 15 carries. TJ Hawkinson 129 on 10 receptions. You had some good performances there, but I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson really let me down in this one. And a lot of it's not his problem. They weren't really scheming him to get open very well in this one. I mean, he had opportunities there, but Kirk missed them. Like eight incompletions for Kirk. All 8 were intended for Justin Jefferson. It felt like at this point in time. And so, I will also say you start off giving up 14 points in a quarter, and then you only give up 3. Then you only give up 17 points the rest of the game. I got to give you some credit for that. That is pretty impressive as a defense to be able to at least cut down on the amount of touchdowns scored in a quarter. I won't hate them so much, but yeah, I do think this is more of a Giants epic performance than it was a Vikings doing anything. But they gave themselves a chance at the end of the game, and that's all you could ask for the Vikings. And that's why I'm going to give them a D- because it wasn't the worst Vikings performance we've ever seen in the playoffs. And honestly, it still wasn't as bad for me as the Chargers performance. So yeah, I'm going to give them a D- right now, but it's borderline one of the worst performances defensively in the first quarter that we saw this week.
100%. The fact that they couldn't get the best receiver in football schemed up after that first drive was kind of disappointing too, because the Giants have a good defense, but Adoree Jackson's not Darius Slay. Like that's not Sauce Gardner over there.
He's not even James Bradbury, who they had last year.
Exactly. Like you can find ways to scheme and get him the ball as well too. They were content with him being a decoy, and that was kind of frustrating. But we'll go to the Giants next too, and I'm going to cruise through this one as well too. They get an A-. Brian Daboll, I thought you were winning 2 games this year. You've already made me look stupid. So that was an absolutely incredible performance. Scheming up Saquon, Daniel Jones. Hodges is now your number 1 receiver. We saw Kenny Golladay put a dude on his butt. Kenny Golladay looked like Quentin Nelson in the open field, pancaking corners as a lead blocker. So give me the Giants. They get an A. They get an A-, whatever you want to call it. They were fantastic. They get whatever grade they want. They get a blank check for their grade. That's what I give them as well. Fantastic job from Brian Daboll and the Giants. A- performance. Great job. I don't know if it'll continue, but fantastic playoff debut that no one was expecting.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I'm giving him a flat A. Just a flat A. I'm giving Daniel Jones an A++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++ in the air for 301 yards, 24 completions, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns. But 17 carries for 78 yards and just running over dudes at one point in time. It was hilarious. Saquon Barkley, 2 touchdowns on 53 yards, 9 carries. And like you said, Isaiah Hodgins, man, can you ask for much more? 8 receptions, 105 yards, a touchdown. But to me, Darius Slayton finally caught the ball every opportunity he was given. Finally, thank you, Darius Slayton. 4 receptions, 88 yards, absolute great performance all around for this Giants team. As you mentioned, Dory Jackson looking like Darius Slay out here, defensive player of the year potentially for a corner type of play. So yeah, give me the Giants here and just a flat A on this one.
Absolutely. And I do want to mention as well too, Daniel Jones, you mentioned everything he did on his legs as well too. They did that. He had like 60 yards on those first 2 drives. He was absolutely killing them. I know the nickname's Vanilla Vic. You can call him Frosty Fields, Caucasian Kaepernick, whatever nickname you want to give him. He is established as a true dual threat quarterback to look out for. Does it continue in the future? We'll wait and see. There's still some limitations there, but him and Brian Dabble, those two get the A+ for sure as well too. A fantastic playoff debut for him. Granted, a lot of people expected the upset because of the Vikings limitations, but the manner in which the Giants did it was just fantastic job across the board. So next we're to go into the Sunday night nightcap, which featured division battle royale between the Ravens, featuring Tyler Huntley, a quarterback, and the Bengals, and weirdly close. Let down a lot of people who were betting on the Bengals in different facets as well too, with how close it was. Really came down to a 99-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown by America's new favorite sweetheart, Sam Hubbard, as well too. So,
Marlon Humphrey's sister, sweetheart.
Exactly. Yeah, touche as well too. Everyone's losing their mind over that handsome son of a gun. He's been there for years, and they just now noticed. But J.K. Dobbins with a solid performance. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow doing their thing. I'm going to start with the Ravens on this one. they're gonna get a C plus. They did a lot with a little. They just you came up short, unfortunately. I mean, and then the fact that J.K. Dobbins had an incredible touchdown run, and you didn't give him the ball after that in the red zone. It felt like I don't remember him getting a carry inside the 5-yard line after that diving touchdown. Your idea was a Tyler Huntley QB jump over the middle from the 2-yard line. You have a little bulldozer of a running back there named J.K. Dobbins when the score's tied up. All you need is a field goal, basically, in the way your defense was playing, because the defense was outstanding for the most part. Offensively was serviceable. Mark Andrews is still Mark Andrews with the best hustle play of the year. But just the play calling, the time management as well, just the little things that win you games is what docks them all the way down to a C+, because offensively they played pretty good due to the limitations. Defensively, I thought they played excellent with what they were dealt. But just the small things to win the game is what cost them, which drops them a lot in this one. So I'm going to give them a C+.
Yeah. By the way, they counted the Dobbins touchdown as a pass reception.
Excuse me, but you know what I mean.
So,
like,
yeah, no. So I'm actually a little bit harsher on the Ravens on this one, just because of that stupid play calling in the red zone. You have J.K. Dobbins and Mark Andrews on your team. Do you drop a play for either one of them? No, you don't. You decide to use your backup. You decide to use your backup running back and his legs to try to get you there. And he runs a quarterback keeper, which didn't get anything. He tries to make a pass attempt, doesn't get anywhere with a pass attempt at DeMarcus Robinson. That was just a dumb idea to begin with. And then you're like, hey, let's run him up the middle and have him jump over like Trevor Lawrence. But he's not 6'6". He's not God's gift for quarterback if people believe that's what Trevor Lawrence wants to be. He's Tyler Huntley, who is a very specific type of quarterback. He runs off of read options and read options only. He does not you should not task him with a quarterback keeper from the start ever, because he tries to make too many big plays. And you saw it right there. Sam Hubbard slapped the ball away, or somebody slapped the ball away. Sam Hubbard picks it up and is like, oh, wow, I get to show off my 4.8 40 speed as I trot down here and become Cincinnati's favorite son. Like, I have so many problems. Like you think Gus Edwards would have been a better option in that situation. Like, you take your pick. Like, anybody's a better option than Tyler Huntley on the one. So I'm going to give the Ravens just give him a D+ because for me that play calling was atrocious. Like, Tyler Huntley can throw the ball. He can do everything else for you. But you didn't drop really enough for Mark Andrews. You didn't draw up enough for J.K. Dobbins. And I feel like if you were going to win this game, those are the two guys you need to do, because your defense played well. You just, couldn't do enough.
Not to mention when you're having Trevor Lawrence dunk it for a 2-point conversion, it's from the 1-yard line with a 6'6" quarterback. You mentioned that can actually dunk a basketball probably. Tyler Huntley's 6'2", and you're at about the 2-yard line, like a long 2, trying to go over the top. I know it's his decision, but calling that type of play there, I agree with you. There's a lot to not like.
6'1". He's 6'1".
Oh, excuse me. I was even wrong in my exaggeration, but that's all that needs to be said. We're moving on to the other side of this one. Cincinnati, they get a C+. They're kind of in the same vein as the Bills. They did not look great, and they tried to give this game away. It felt like they went weirdly stale. The offensive line kept getting hurt. Not all of it is in their control with those injuries, but it was not a very pretty game, in a game they should have won a lot more comfortably. So I'm going to give them a C+. And in the exact same vein as the Bills, if they play like this against the Bills this week, they could potentially be in trouble if the Bills show up. So this is going to be a game of what the heck is going to happen between the Bills and the Bengals, because they both left a lot to be desired this first weekend. So give me a C+. You won the game, so you're kind of the Ravens lost the game. I don't know. This was a rough game to really grade. So they both get C+.
Fair enough. I'm gonna kind of go a little special with their grade on this. You went with a B- earlier. I'm gonna go with a little B-. So just you got the 79.5 for you to get this B- is what the Bengals did. Just enough. Offensively, they looked all right. Akeem Davis-Gaithers, congratulations, you are here now. Thank you for coming to play finally. Gets a pick in this one. Finally healthy, so able to help out there with Logan Wilson. I do think there were some positives here for the Bengals, but again, you want to talk about a team needing to run the ball when they're up on the scoreboard. Use Joe Mixon. Use Samaje Perine. Do something, guys. Don't just – you don't have to throw out of every situation. I know Joe Burrow loves to throw the ball. You don't have to, though. It is okay. You can run the ball. You have Joe Mixon. It would be okay. Let your defense take a break. I know, look, Sam Hubbard has been there. He's been doing it for 6 years now in Cincinnati. He is Cincinnati's favorite son in a lot of ways. Congratulations on him for that fumble recovery. But I sat here watching that until that fumble recovery. I'm thinking this game is going to be turn around and be a 14-point swing for the Ravens. They're going to win by 2 touchdowns at that point in time, just because of the way they were moving the ball and the Bengals just looked silly on offense. Like they just didn't look like they were trying to play offense. They were just like, let's go backyard BS and see what happens. So yeah, Bengals B-, like little B-.
Lowercase b, like barely, not even a full-grown capital B. This is a baby B. So both leaving a little bit of something to be desired for both of us, so that we hopefully see corrected from both those teams playing this weekend. But now we get to the super, not so super wild card weekend, the final swan song of it. The Cowboys taking on the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. And we're going to do this in reverse order. Last time we've been doing the loser first and the winner, but because it's your Cowboys, reluctantly your Cowboys, we're going to go with them first. And you know what? The floor is yours, my friend. You get to go first on this one. Grade your Cowboys.
God. Okay. How do I grade the Cowboys? That's how I grade the Cowboys. But no. So give me. You know what? I'll say this. Dak might have played his best game of his career as a NFL quarterback. The offense looked good. The defense looked good all around. You shut down a team that really should have dominated you in a lot of ways, just for what they do offensively. But you didn't. You didn't let it happen. So for that reason, and it hurts me to say, I'm giving A+. Best. I think they had the best performance all around this weekend, top to bottom. And what they did to the Bucs, what they did to Tom Brady, kind of made him look like an idiot. Made him and Mike Evans look like they've never played a down together in their life. I mean, it's outside of the reemergence of Julio Jones for one play. You really didn't hurt yourself at all in this game. You were using all your weapons, much to my demise as far as betting on CeeDee Lamb goes. But you know what? That's okay. Because as a Cowboys fan, watching them actually perform top to bottom was a little more of a relief than it should have been. So yeah, I'm going to go with Cowboys here. And one of the biggest non-believers of the weekend was me expecting the Cowboys to lose to the Bucs here, and they did everything to prove me wrong. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to give it an A+.
We agree on pretty much everything. We won't take too long there as well too, because I agree with pretty much everything. The reason I'm going to give him an A- though is because you can't miss 4 PATs and get an A+. That Brett Maher, I'm surprised we haven't got the official release of him yet as well too. If they need a kicker, I've made a field goal in an NFL stadium. There's video proof of it. I got you. And it's from PAT.
5 straight extra points at one point in time.
Exactly. It was sure he made one at the end of it. That's great. But like, that's the only, everything else was perfect. The defense was awesome. That offensive line looked as good as it has looked in years with a 40-year-old at left tackle. Tyron Smith and Zach Martin on the same side of the line now is terrifying. Tyler Smith not being put in space as a tackle, that you get the most out of him at guard as well too. Our concern was putting him out on an island at tackle, getting all those holding penalties. Kick him inside to guard, and somehow you get Jason Peters, and he looks pretty good. I don't know how they did it, but they managed to rebuild that offensive line again, making a kind of a questionable pick, but it worked out. The running, everyone, Tony Pollard, Zeke, Dak played his best career game, in my opinion. CeeDee Lamb, T.Y. Hilton, Michael Gallup, the defense, all fantastic. So I give him an A-. If they hit 2 of those 4 PATs, I give him an A+. But you can't miss 4 on me. I draw the line at 4. That's where the line is. You miss 3, you get an A flat. You miss 4, you get an A-. If you miss 5,
I'm not counting. I don't count special teams as part of their grade. If I counted special teams as part of the grade, some of these guys would be an Fs as a winning team. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, no, I do understand your point. For sure.
That's fair. And now we'll go to the Bucs, and yeah, just kind of a disappointment all around as well too, except for you, where it was a disappointment and a relief at the same time. So I'll let you go ahead and take on the Bucs first.
So for the Bucs, yeah, I'm gonna be mean. I'm gonna be real mean. You have a go at quarterback, and he looks so bad like that, and Leonard Fournette couldn't do anything. I'm gonna go F minus. Whole bunch of F minuses in this one because the Bucs looked awful, and a team that I had predicted to win this game, no, they didn't do enough for me. So give me the Bucs with just all of the minuses.
All right, let me just do this really quick. So we're gonna go 1. We're going to go 2. What I just did there is I doubled down on your point because I agree with all of those minuses and all of the Fs. You can even throw 1 more on me because I'm feeling a little brutal for them as well, too. And I'm the one who picked the Cowboys in our pick 'em. It's not just that you lost. It's not that you're just kind of overwhelmed. We knew the Cowboys had more talent. We kind of knew that going into it. It wasn't too much of a surprise. My problem is the way Tom Brady played, he probably deserves an infinity F because of how lackadaisical he played. That was the worst game I've ever seen him play, honestly, because he looked like he didn't care. And if he was snapped, didn't like his first read, throwing into the ground, casually sitting there throwing, getting upset, throws his first red zone pick as a Buccaneer, where he just floats it to the back of the end zone. If LeBron James played like that in a playoff game, we would lose our minds over it. It would be all over every major conglomerate, all that sort of thing as well, too. So if we're going to hold those two to that same kind of GOAT caliber standards, which obviously Tom Brady's still a GOAT, not taken away from his career. This is a single game thing. So Brady fans, don't try and come castrate me. My point is, in this game, it was absolutely miserable, and he needs to be held to that standard. And then to finish with 300 yards at the end of the game when you're down 31-6, empty calorie stat padding, which is what everyone likes to say LeBron does when
it's Dak.
Exactly. Like Dak, you are not Diet Dr. Pepper for this week. Tom Brady has taken the mantle as Diet Dr. Pepper as well. It was he didn't seem to care. He looked like he was checked out, and it's kind of been rough like that all year, which we should expect from a sub 500 team. Like, they have not been good all year, really. And they didn't even try to run the ball, really. You had a few successful runs and you quit. There's been talk about Tom Brady changing things on like Thursday, Fridays before games after the game plan's installed. It looked like it today. So Buccaneers get an F. That was the worst game Tom Brady's ever played, in my opinion. And if we saw LeBron James play a playoff game like that, where he waits till the end in stat pads, he would get reamed day in and day out on all major networks, podcasts, etc. He still does, even when he doesn't do that, or when he does anything relatively similar, he does. So he's being held to the same standard. And F super minus from both of us on the Buccaneers for the worst play. Would we say it's the worst performance of the weekend? Would we say it's worse? Or I think we're agreeing it's the worst one.
I think it's the worst one. I think it was the worst single-handed performance from one side of the ball by itself was so bad that it made the defense not care. Like, I've never seen Levante, or I've never seen not Levante David, but a defense like with Carlton Davis and squad just looks so out of it. That defense, should be a top 5 defense in the league, week in and week out, no matter who's injured or not, because they have like 16 deep on that defense that can make a challenge for you. They look miserable. The pass rush looked awful, just abysmal. And like, they were on the field so much, chasing so many guys. That's why, like, they had to go chase T.Y. Hilton 40 yards down the field every time on third down, and T.Y. Hilton's like, "Hey guys, I'm a young spring chicken today." Like, like if you're the Bucs, there's a lot to address here. Number one's going to be Tom Brady. I hate saying this about guys that have had great careers, but there's a time and place that you need to just hang it up. It should have been this last offseason, and I said it then. Once you start talking about retirement, the writing's on the wall. The day becomes long at that point in time. Like, you either need to get out or you need to stop talking about it. And he never stopped talking about it. He continued to talk about the retirement saga throughout the season and what it means going forward. And again, the writing's on the wall going into this offseason. I don't think Tom Brady returns. I think this is going to be the official announcement for Tom Brady that he's actually done, because this season looked like Peyton Manning's last as well. Like, the difference is that Peyton Manning last season ended in a storybook moment. This season's did not end in a storybook moment for Tom Brady, and it was far from a storybook season to begin with everything he was doing off the field as well. So to me, I look at this, and this is fitting end to this Bucs season considering where they started. Like, this was just awful all around. So
absolutely, as well too. A very wild weekend as well too. And we still got a few more rounds left to go in what should be a very competitive divisional round too, hopefully. Last year divisional weekend was one of the best ones in, honestly, we've probably ever seen as far as NFL playoffs go. So hopefully we can get a pseudo repeat of it. But that's going to do it for our main event. That's going to now take us into Kelsey's favorite part of every show, and that is Crunch Time, brought to you by our good friends over at Outlier. Use outlier.bet/high-low sports. Get yourself a free 7-day trial. Bet smarter, not harder. Get everything you need from odds, trends, game lines, money lines, props, everything you need you can find in there as well too. Get yourself, win yourself some money like we've been doing since we started using Outlier as well too. And for the Crunch Time, I'm going to head to the Octagon. We've talked a lot about football. We talked a lot about we're going to go to the Octagon. We're going to talk about a player who has 2 brothers who's played in the NFL. Talk about the return of John Jones. We talked about a few months ago when there were rumors. Well, now we got a confirmed return. After 3 years off, John Jones will be returning at heavyweight for a vacant heavyweight title against Ciryl Gane. And the reason this fight's so much fun for me is, A, it's heavyweight John Jones, arguably the best combat sports MMA fighter we've ever seen, against Ciryl Gane, one of the most freakish heavyweights we have ever seen, besides John Jones at this point, because we haven't seen him at heavyweight. A guy who moves like he's 180 pounds, weighs 240. The only other heavyweight that can throw kicks, really, too, especially kicks above, the kneecap. So that's a very different type of dynamic we're going to see with him and John Jones. My concern is if it turns into a wrestling fight, John Jones is going to eat him alive, because John Jones is a fantastic wrestler, and Ciryl Gane got wrestled by Francis Ngannou, who is shuffle, throw nuclear warhead hands. Not much of a wrestler, especially with his knee injuries. And that, of course, includes Francis Ngannou, now no longer part of the UFC, not able to reach a contract negotiation, asking for different things in his contract that they were not able to oblige. So he will be hitting the open market as well, too, which imagine someone's going to pay him a nice chunk of change. There's talks about him boxing Tyson Fury, which I hope doesn't happen for his sake, honestly. That's as dangerous as he is with those small gloves. Tyson Fury is going to eat him alive in the ring. If he wants to box Deontay Wilder, he'll probably lose, but at least it'll be edge of your seat, oh my God, the whole time, because they both throw nuclear warheads every play or every punch. But there's plenty of options for him. Wish him all the best. Definitely looking forward to see what his endeavors bring as well, too. Maybe he joins another MMA league. Maybe does a little bit of everything. Who knows as well, too. But John Jones, Ciryl Gane, I cannot wait, and I just hope John Jones makes it to this fight as well, too. I hope nothing gets in the way, because he is outstanding. The best fighter we've ever seen in the cage, quite possibly as well, too. There's still a little debate, not much of one. And Ciryl Gane, one of the more freakish heavyweights we've seen as well. This should be I'm on the edge of my seat. Isn't March 4th yet? Like I'm already sick of waiting right now. I just wish I could freeze myself until that point so I could see those and then see them both in the cage. So definitely a fantastic night of fights coming up as well too. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one. And if John Jones is going to look anything like the last time we saw Chandler Jones against Mac Jones, it's going to be quite the fight as well too. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can't wait for that. That'll be fun as we get closer to it. And, March 4th can't come any sooner. For me, though, I am actually going to go. There's been a little bit of, kind of surprise here. Women's national team being shown on HBO Max, by the way, in case anybody's missed it. First time in major network has carried U.S. women's national team news other than ESPN. First time it's ever been on a paid-for service as well, like as far as a streaming service. So was absolutely cool. Awesome to watch that last night. Malpew Swanson, as she's now known. She was able to score 2 in the U.S. women's national team. But more importantly, this is just kind of a show for American sports getting on these streaming services, getting new deals, especially lower American sports, because you look at women's national team, the MLS with new Apple TV deals. So, yeah, a lot of good deals going out there for soccer. But women's national team right here, getting their just due, getting themselves on a highlight thing that HBO Max, if you guys don't know, the 4th highest used subscription service so far in streaming services. So a lot of opportunities there for eyes on the U.S. women's national team, more money to be earned for them as well. So exciting to see there. And if you guys still can't get, interested in watching them, maybe if you're watching in Spanish, they are still available on like Peacock and all that as well. But yeah, no, it was really cool to see women's national team on HBO Max. And, it's funny because in a week where you see that news, unfortunately, there was also the BBC showing Liverpool soccer game, Liverpool and Wolves soccer match that obviously the lights went out was the first issue. Second issue, there was a random adult entertainment prank played during the game, if you will. So lots of I don't know what it is with broadcasts in soccer, how they can become so entertaining, but have one positive here with the U.S. women's national team and one negative as BBC had to come out and apologize for a adult entertainment prank played during the matches. There were sex noises being heard in the background of the game being played. So pretty entertaining there as far as just like light little news subject there to end out crunch time.
Absolutely as well too. And you know what? HBO Max is probably my favorite streaming service personally as well too. So that's great to see as well too. And I definitely glad they contribute to their monthly subscription as well. So that is going to do it for us here on the High Low Sports Podcast. We all appreciate you joining us and hanging out with us for a little over an hour of your day here to talk a little bit of sports and a little bit of everything in between as well too. We look forward to seeing you all again next week. Once again, check out Manscaped. Use code High Low Sports, get yourself a nice little discount. Outlier.bet/High Low Sports. Go and get yourself a free 7-day trial and try and win yourself some money with betting as well too. Will pay for itself if you follow those trends and some of the betting odds as well too, especially if sports betting is recently legal in your state and you're still playing with house money. Go ahead and turn that into some mansion money real quickly as well. So we appreciate you all joining us, and we will see you all again next week.